Today I'm talking about how shifting your state can really change the whole game very quickly. And it's one of the most important things. And once you learn this and you keep practicing it, believe me, it's going to serve you so much more than a lot of the strategies out there and a lot of the even manifestation techniques that people talk about. I really bring like all of that into a space so that allows you to move into your higher vision. Much more with much more of your true expression, with more of you coming alive, with results showing up that actually are at the kind of quality level you also desire. Okay, so the first thing, let's look at what I mean by state. Okay, so even as you've come to this video, are you in that state where you feel like calm, relaxed, happy, maybe even just curious, really chill? Or are you in a state where you're in stress, you're in overwhelm or anxiety, you have like 10 million questions in your mind about what you have to do next, and is it going to be easy, is it going to be hard, and this constant movement of question in the mind, right? Those are completely different states. They might as well be completely different people, because the results you're going to get from them are really at different ends of the spectrum. So one way to look at that is the information that'll come to you will depend on your state, because we will block out things that are even for our own good when we're in that stress state. The other thing is we perceive the information that comes in differently. When you're calm and relaxed, you're able to pick up on opportunity much faster, because there's not this kind of need and pull and fear and all of that stress mixed in. You're actually able to, it's like you're almost like sitting back and chill and able to receive and assess that through your natural system of intuition, your gut knowing, and your brain, of course, right? So the question is, how do we change states, and what are some examples of how this can be like night and day? Well, I'll share one personal example. This was many years ago when I started a consulting business at the time. And this was well before social media, by the way, so I didn't have access to all of this to do that, nor did I have any previous title as a consultant, nor did I have family or friends that had gone and quit their jobs and started a business like this, nor did I have a mentor or coach, right? So there are certain things when you just get the call and you trust it and you know in your gut that that's what you're meant to do next. It just feels right? Like it's not like there's tons of evidence. It's just something that's in you and you trust it and you actually take action. The likelihood of that turning into a result and into a good result is way higher than when you actually do it in a much more linear, logical way and try and look for evidence first. Okay, so I'm going to make this part of the story fairly short to illustrate this example of shifting state. There's a lot I could go into about how I even got to that stage, but let me, as I said, just keep us focused here. So my initial state, even though I was clear, and in my case, I actually gave in my resignation at the job I was at and decided to just, jump in the deep end and figure it out. Initially, there was a lot of peace and calm. I remember the receptionist at the organization I worked at. She said, I've never seen anybody look so calm after quitting a job. And yet I didn't have anywhere that I was going, particularly that I knew of, like it was into the unknown. And so that, like hearing that was really affirming to me that obviously, this, I was doing something that was actually really true, that was truly aligned for me. Anyways, after that initial kind of high and joy and kind of the release of the job, I then went into the state of, okay, let's create a plan. At the back in those days, I thought, let me just create a brochure. Creating a website just felt like too much at the time. And so let me create something physical that I can start giving out at events and to people I meet. And while I was doing this, I was in a state of fear. I was in a state of overwhelm. It just felt like a lot. And as I said, I didn't have guidance around me. And sometimes, even when we do, it doesn't make the difference because it's us who have to first shift. So, being in this state lasted about 2 months. Now, it's not like I wasn't doing anything, and I bet you many of you can relate to this. Maybe you're at a place right now, you're trying to make a big jump, or you're trying to really shift the trajectory of your business, for example, and you're going to maybe a new level of client that you haven't worked with before. It doesn't matter, right? I'm giving this one example of when I started something new and different, and so you can apply it to any situation. And I tell you, like, people who are already in their 6 figures and 7 figures also have this when they're looking to make a big change. So the kind of the truth of it is the same throughout. And so here I was, knowing that I could do this. Like, mentally, my brain was saying, of course you can, right? But emotionally, it was just like stuck. Like, I wasn't used to, first of all, being alone without like a workplace and teams and people around me, right? So just working alone, me and a computer, just felt like so isolating. And so there was a lot of things going on that I needed to get a grip on very quickly. But 2 months went by, and so that was the state I was in. And in those 2 months, nothing happened, right? Yes, I was kind of creating my stuff at home, but I wasn't getting any sales because I hadn't actually gone out and put my work out there. And more, I guess, more real than that was that my state wasn't actually welcoming it. I wasn't in that ready state. But then came a day, and in my case, it was a very practical thing. I realized that I was going to start running out of money if I didn't get a contract soon. So this is where sometimes circumstances can actually help us, even when they are negative and difficult. They can like wake us up and say, hey, get on with it. None of this, no more fiddling around. No more sitting there trying to plan anything. It's time to move into action and get the sale, right? So that's what I did. I shifted my state to now I'm in business. And that was completely different. It's like everything else just went quiet. And now I knew I had a goal. I knew where I was going, and that was my intention. And now my energy could be directed towards that. I was harnessing my energy to direct it towards the goal instead of all of the other busy work around me. And so when we are at a new juncture, usually we need to do that. We need to silence a lot of things so that we can move in and really embody that new energy, that new identity that we're now ready for. And that's exactly what happened. And as soon as I did that, and it's almost like I relaxed into myself. I still didn't have the answers. I didn't know how this was going to happen. I didn't know what I was going to do. But it was like I made that decision and I could really be in it. And then very quickly, from that shift in state, an idea came to mind. A person's name came to mind. I didn't have a large network. I quit my job before I had a large network because that, my mind had said all these things like, yeah, I'd like to be in business one day. And, I'll stay at this job for a few years. And in the background, I'll kind of build my network and everything. And then when I actually quit, I'll have all of these people, like that was the mind telling me how to do it. But emotionally, I couldn't stay in that job. I was just like, I'd already outgrown it. And so I listened to my heart in that case. And so here I was without a giant network. But we always have exactly what we need when we need it. And if we can't see it, it'll come to us. And we will, like some situation will occur that will invite it in because we have become ready. In this case, it was somebody I knew. And this somebody was someone who had seen my work, a few years back, and who had also happened to call me on more than one occasion just to ask for some of my guidance in my area of specialization, which really had to do with developing people and developing people within an organization, a company at the time. That's what I was passionate about. I still am, although nowadays it's much more on a coaching, in a coaching path. that I take people. So at that time, it was for a company, and I contacted this person, and I knew that he had progressed in his career by this time, and he had a senior role. So I just called him up, like we knew each other, so it was really easy in that regard. And I said, look, I know you've called me up on occasion and asked me for some guidance, and guess what? I am now ready to be hired. I have just started my consulting business, and I'd love to talk to you to see if there's a need within your company or other people. Just really relaxed and clear and honest. And he said, sure, let's have a meeting. And we did, and that ended up, he told me the kinds of things the company needed at that time. He asked me to create a proposal. I did that. I had never created a proposal, by the way, before, but I used both my common sense and things I've learned over the years to see, like, what would I want to see in this proposal, right? And I presented that, and he was happy with it, and he hired me. And initially, of course, it was for one piece of the project to see how it went, and of course we could see how we worked together. And it went well, and that continued into a contract that was at least a couple of years of regular work. And then even after that, there was more sporadic kind of projects that I helped them with. And that literally launched my consulting business. And I have used that same kind of energy and intention to launch other things, right? Whether it was my coaching business, other services I offer, which I might go into in another time. How, like, even in my coaching business, I kind of went straight into the level that I was really confident at, instead of thinking I have to start at the bottom, because I already had a bunch of experience, right? So now you might say, look, you lucked out, you happen to know somebody. But what I'm trying to say is that it was shifting the state that allowed me to receive the information, receive the idea, and perceive it in a way that I could then act on it, and act on it in this new identity, right? Which was to, of course, show up professionally, do my work, present a proposal, have the meeting, all the stuff that goes into that particular kind of business. And it worked beautifully, because that set me up. Having that, like, very solid contract set me up to the other opportunities I was then going to bring in. So that is an example. Now, that was an inner shift in state because my circumstances suddenly told me it was time, right? But this is about listening to your gut. When you get that, like, act and make the decision to act. Maybe you don't even know what you're going to act on, but within a couple of days or within a short span of time, usually something will show up in your sphere that will say, hey, do this. And it may seem like the smallest of actions, but trust it and go ahead and do the next thing. And I'll give you more examples in future videos. I've used the same thing when I've said, kind of like, enough is enough. It's time to move into this moment and act on what I have and what I know, and welcome in new ideas. Now, another example I'll give you that is even more specifically really working with a state is how I helped somebody very recently. Now, this person's a multimillionaire and a very hard worker, and has done things from what I knew in that very conventional way of really putting in hard work, using a lot of time, also going for certain business investments that could grow his business and his wealth and all of that. And so he doesn't, from what I, like, again, he's not totally into the manifestation, some techniques and all of that stuff. It's more of the let's get on with it and do it, right? So what can happen with people like that is that they're so good at that, right? They're so good at that. But sometimes that can kind of get them so embroiled in what they're doing and the amount of work that something is taking, that they can miss out on some of the pieces that kind of belong in the manifestation sphere. So what happened was, basically, we were having a conversation, and in the conversation, I learned that this person had property which had been vacant for months and months. And clearly there was a lot of stress, no revenue coming in from that property. And the tension, I could see, like I could feel it, just in that conversation. And so in that moment, I said, look, are you open to a different kind of approach, using a style of, let's call it manifestation? And he said, yes, definitely. And so I spent 5 minutes, I don't know, maximum 10, just in a really conversational style, because I knew this person was already very tuned into his mind and thinking in certain ways. So it, but the body was in that stress mode, right? So I knew that a shift was needed, and that's what I supported him in, was shifting that state by asking him some very specific questions. And these questions, in that moment, were personal to him. So, when I'm working one on one, it's really easy for me to kind of tap in and kind of see, okay, this is where the person needs the movement. This is where there is stuckness. And this is where, if we open that kind of energy, then we will get the next piece of the puzzle, right? So I asked him questions that allowed him to tap into a much more solid, hey, wait a second. Yes, while I've had the stress for, so many months, there is a possibility that what I need is right there, right now in the quantum field, right? It is there. And I got him aligned to that energy. And once he had that, and then with a couple more questions around that, he was able to really like land in it. And the way I knew that was that he physically relaxed. He tuned into more of a sense of, wow, yeah, that would be great, or joy or relief, because these are the things that are in this other state, that is a higher state where we will receive information, and we can perceive that information correctly in order to know what else to do. And so in this case, it wasn't more hard work. He'd done the things by now, right? He'd done the things. And he'd also given me, and they were great and they were important. So I'm not somebody who's going to say, don't take any action. Definitely not, right? There are times when we do need to do that. And it's it's fun to do that. So he had done all the work. He had changed the property to make sure that it was going to be at a level that would attract the kind of person he wanted. He even at one point decided, maybe I should lower the price because it's just not working, or take these tenants that I'm actually not that thrilled about. So he was starting to compromise instead of stay in that higher vibration of getting what he really wanted. And so I invited him to consider, well, instead of just getting anybody, why don't you get like the best person, right? Why don't you get somebody who's actually also really aligned to that property, right? And even that kind of shifted his energy, like, wow, like that would be fantastic. So through those questions and him shifting and him relaxing, by the end of that short conversation, he was in a different state. And I said, just remain in this state. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to do, right? You've done the work already. You've done the actions in this particular situation. For him, at this time, that was the best guidance that I knew that would work. And I said, just stay in this state and think about it once in a while, right? Have yourself feel good about it. Know that it's going to come. It's coming. Of course it's coming. It's here. It's already here. You just gotta wait to see who it's going to be. And of course, I was trying to add some lightness and fun to this, because that's part of what shifting state is. When we're in the state of play, when we lighten things up, that's when we get the brainstorms, right? So he'd shifted his state. And the other thing that happened during this time, which happens, fairly regularly with my clients, is that when I'm working one-on-one, I get so tuned in with them that something will come out of my mouth that is like, my brain might not think to say that, but it'll just be like a gut response. Like I'll have tuned in so much. And in this particular case, I found myself saying, what happens if I said, mark my words, in 2 weeks, you're going to have somebody, right? And of course, his attention completely shifted at that stage. And I was surprised to say something so specific in terms of time, because I don't always say that. You don't want to just kind of make people feel good by trying to say something nice, right? That wasn't what was happening. It was actually a gut response because I was tuned in, and we had already gotten him aligned in that new shift, new state. And then I said, okay, let go. And that was the end of that particular conversation. And we didn't see him or talk to him for the next couple of weeks. And I remember, around the 2 week mark, I was like, I wonder if I'll hear from him, right? Because I couldn't guarantee that 2 weeks by any chance. It was just something that had come out, as I said. Well, it went by, and what I do, by the way, it was like, instead of going into, oh no, this is disappointing, or I was wrong, or now he's going to be upset that what I said didn't work. Like, instead of going into that, which would be really easy to do, I decided that it's time for me to shift my state, right? So when I'm working with somebody, I keep myself tuned into that higher level, because I'm not going to bring them down. I'm not going to support them by going down to maybe a lower vibration that they've been at, right? My job is to stay up here with them, with their higher vision, not with them, with their higher vision. And that's what I did. And so I shifted within, and I let it go, right? And I said, no, I'm not going to call him or anything. I'm just going to let it be, and let's see what happens, because now it's in his hands, right? So I'm going to trust him as well as trust whatever happened in that time period that we had that conversation. Well, a week went by, and then I got a text, and in this text it said, "It worked. I have an excellent tenant." And I was elated, of course. So it took 3 weeks. It didn't take 2. Timing isn't always exact in these things, right? When I kind of intuit or channel a response for somebody, but usually there's something that I've said in that like I can feel the energy, but I'm not going to sit there and promise anything about that, because there's a lot of factors usually going on. But usually there's something in there that has already shifted if that comes out of me, and in this case it had. So yeah, and it wasn't just anyone, and it wasn't somebody he had to like really cut his prices down to meet, or somebody he didn't want. It was an excellent tenant, as he said. So that was a shift of state that I supported, and I've got tons of stories, by the way, that I could provide to you. And actually, if you want, I've to download the free book that I have on offer right now. It's called Cast a New Trajectory, and it's stories like this where I've worked more in depth with clients, and that'll be in the description box, so you can get the link there. But so I guess what I want you to get out of this is that when we say we have the power to shift the state. What is it going to take to shift my state right now? That's a question to ask yourself, to get aligned with what it is that is my higher vision. Okay, sometimes we have to let go of the goal in our mind in order to get into a new state. Sometimes it's other things we can do, get into more playful lightness, and sometimes it is right in tuning into that. And like I did in my example, where I kind of harnessed my energy and directed it towards my goal, and just dropped the busyness, dropped the doing all this stuff that I thought might help, and create my result, getting out of the busy mind. So shifting the state. If you need help shifting your state, because sometimes it's hard to do it on our own. I've done it on my own many times, but I've also then sometimes gotten support to do that, and I've definitely helped lots of people shift their states as well. I do have on offer right now one-to-one sessions, just a one-time session or a 3-week session with 3 sessions in that. That you can access. Normally I work longer periods with time, like 90 days or 6 months. So those are more comprehensive packages. But sometimes, that's what somebody needs. You just need that shift in state, and you've been stuck. And even though everything might be like a lot of things might be going well, you may be really successful, you've got this one piece, just like this, multimillionaire had. Like everything was going well, but his attention was getting really fixated on this one particular issue. And that can slow us down and get us out of our flow, and also put us in the negative state instead of keep us in the healthy, whole state. Yeah, you're welcome to get that link if you want to work with me down in the description box as well. And then finally, if you learned something particular in this, or you think of an example, or you experience an example this week, put it in the comments, right? Let's support each other because the more examples we get, the more we're all reminded to keep going and do this for ourselves and make sure that we are living out our higher vision. So I hope that's been helpful, and I will talk to you next time.